Hi, this is Cate, and I wanted to do a recording based on conversations that I've had with others around true empathy and our children. And this comes from an issue where say your child's got an eating disorder or is on drugs or something. Now, what a lot of people don't realise is that when you are with a child that has a drug problem, an alcohol problem, or an eating disorder, there is what the course is leading us to is it's called True Empathy, and it's at the start of chapter 16, but it's actually on every page. And it's the only way we can ever heal anyone, ever, we're healing our mind of our misperception. So whenever we have a story about what our child's doing, what we need to do is we need to come to complete surrender. We have to see that whatever we've been doing hasn't worked. Now, what Jesus is telling us in the Course is that we need to see our child as they truly are, and that's the only healing, the only way we can ever heal anyone. Now, I'm going to be dealing mainly with children in this video because there's a lot of children that have got depression, drug addictions, etc. And what happens is when our children start to display these, all it is the ego seeking to alleviate the painful mind. So it's looking outside itself, and when it has some drugs or something or other, whatever it's doing, it's thinking it's alleviating it, but the painful mind, that the pain of actually being in an egoic state is terrible. So with our children, when they're already feeling dreadful from their guilt and their fear and their terrible unworthiness that the ego's mindset is, when we try to correct them and fix them and criticise them thinking that that's helpful, or we tell them what they need to change about themselves to be better, we're coming from a state where we think we're making the problem real. So what we're doing is we're actually trying to fix something that's not happening. It seems to be happening. So this is why the Course in Miracles is so radical, that it says that the only true way of helping anyone is by seeing them as they truly are, true empathy, seeing them as the Christ self. So when you're with your child, and this will happen, you'll eventually start to do this with everyone. When you're with your child, the only way you can ever help them is seeing their innocence, seeing their guiltlessness, being the love, seeing them as holy. Now that can seem a really difficult thing to do when the ego's screaming that that you need to do something and that you're a bad mother or father if you don't actually do something to help them. Now, you will actually be doing things because that's what this world's about. There's bodies moving around and doing things. But if you're doing something out of fear, if you're acting out of fear because you're trying to keep your child alive, you won't be helpful. Now, this is a radical teaching that a lot of people can't do, but it's the only way you can ever help your child. You have to be okay with them dying, because what that means is that you won't be coming from a fear that wants them to live. Now, what that is completely resigning as your own teacher, completely resigning, completely surrendering that you know anything and then you know how to fix your child. So, in other words, we surrender, we give up. We have to come to a state of mind where we look at everything we've done for our child and we say, nothing's worked. I've done, you know, and there's lots of stories, and everyone has their stories about what they've done to try to help their child, but all these things come from fear. They all come, unless you've already practicing this, of course, but I know firsthand, because this was what drove me to actually practice the true teachings of A Course in Miracles, because I saw that my daughter was dying, and I had done everything I could from fear. I had lectured, I'd scolded, I'd put her in rehab, I just, you name it, I'd done it. Tried to give her money, withhold money, tell her how to dress, tell her how to speak, criticised her, thinking that that would somehow make her feel like, oh, I need to change. But all criticism does is actually fuel the unworthiness. So the true way, the only way to help your child in anything they've got is to sit in the absolute presence of their holy Christ self. Now, I was just talking to someone about how to do this, and I know that I was led by the Holy Spirit how to actually do this with my daughter, and that was the first miracle. Now, the miracle is the shift of your mind, of how you're perceiving her or him. So your shift from fear-based thinking about your child to love-based thinking, which is trusting. So what I suggested to her, which was sort of something the Holy Spirit brought in, was, this was just a lady that I was talking to recently, was imagine that you're sitting on your couch, your sofa, in your lounge room or anywhere, and Jesus turns up and he's sitting with you. He appears opposite you, and you're sitting there experiencing him. Now, if Jesus turns up and you're looking in his eyes, and your heart is opening with love and gratitude, and you're just completely feeling this love radiating from him, and all you want to do is serve. You're just feeling this great love, and you just maybe just say, you know, what can I do? You know, can I get you something to eat? Can I get you something to drink? What do you need? You're like completely humbled to helping, and you're completely feeling this beautiful love. Now, you wouldn't look at Jesus and say, hey, you know, you need to fix that pimple on your face, or you need to change your clothing. So what the experience that you're having when you're sitting with Jesus and you're feeling this beautiful Christ love, this beautiful, amazing experience in your mind. Now, this is an experience of the Christ self. So when you're sitting with Jesus, you're just experiencing this love. You know, you're looking into his eyes and you're feeling this love radiating through you, and his complete and loving acceptance of you. He just adores you. He just loves you, and he's got no judgment on you. Not one skerrick of thought is judging you. And this is the Christ mind. Now, the experience that you have while you're sitting with Jesus is the experience you need to have when you sit with your child. So what we're doing is we're taking, this is what the course, and it's all through the course, it's seeing the face of Christ. So it's not actually seeing Jesus's face, it's actually having the mindset or the attitude or that experience when you're with Jesus. So when you go and see your child, or the next time you see your child, that's the experience. So there's no fixing, there's no changing, there's no telling them to change anyway, there's no advice, there's no correcting, there's no lectures, there's no helping in terms of trying to help them change. Help comes from being guided in that moment of, once you are in your true empathy, once you are seeing them as who they truly are, once you're able to connect in, the words that will come out of your mouth will be about how holy they are, how perfect they are, how complete they are, and there's nothing to change. There's nothing to change. They don't need to change at all. So what you're doing is you're connecting into a level of mind. So in the world of form, they might be doing things, but what we're trying to do is raise our minds above the level of form. So we're overlooking the body, we're overlooking the words that come out of a child's body, we're overlooking everything, and this is practicing the forgiveness. We overlook, and forgiveness is seeing beyond the body. We go beyond what we hear, we go beyond what we see, and we connect purely to their Christ innocent self. And this is a practice. When I first practiced this with my daughter, I got the healing, and my mind got healed of its misperceptions. So this is for us. Now, we can't be attached to outcomes. This is, we can't say, I'm going to do this, seeing this Christ innocence so my child can get off drugs or stop drinking or start eating normally. We can't be attached to outcomes because we don't know what the best outcome is for our child. So we have to come to a state of mind where we are completely okay with whatever happens to our child, and that we will love them with this Christ love, with this love that is unconditional, no matter what. So we allow our child to be on drugs. We allow our child to even die. Now, that sounds like a really radical thing, but we can't know what's best for anyone here in this world, how we're waking up, how our minds are awakened. And it might be that the best thing for everyone is that the child does die, and we can't even be affected by that in terms of see that as something going wrong. And that sounds like a really big thing, but you can, when your state of mind is completely resigned and completely surrendered to knowing that the Holy Spirit has got everything in place and will use everything, we have to even surrender that we don't know what's best. So when we give up playing God, and knowing that my child should live and I should be doing everything I can to make this child live, it doesn't mean that we don't help our child. It means, because we do, we will be guided. Once we're actually seeing our child for who they are, we stop trying to correct a problem that isn't there. The problem is not there. Anything of the ego is nothing. So when a child is taking drugs, they're trying to alleviate themselves from a problem that doesn't exist, but it seems to be happening. So we're operating like on two levels. We are operating in the world of form. So we don't enable our child, we still don't, if your child's on drugs and they want money, you might you have to ask for guidance, and it might be a yes and it might be a no. And the times when I started doing this with my daughter, I was guided yes sometimes. Sometimes she asked me for money for a packet of cigarettes. Sometimes it was a yes, sometimes it was a no. You've got to realise that smoking is neither good nor bad. Smoking does nothing, because it's the mind that hurts the body, not anything. There's no cause in form. So smoking, eating, anything that you do, you know, eating, drinking, smoking, it does nothing to the body. It seems to, because we've given it belief in it. But getting back to how we do this true empathy with our children, it's if you find this, if you think this is going to be hard, then you're not willing to surrender. You have to be completely surrendered, 100%. So what I would say to you is to look and say, has anything I've ever done helped? Truly look. Anything you've ever done for your child, coming from fear, coming from the ego's thought system of trying to find solutions, think deeply and see if anything's worked. If you still think you can find something to help your child, and you think you're trying to fix a problem that's not there, and when I say it's not there, it seems to be there, but what I'm asking you to do is I'm asking you to overlook the problem, overlook that there is a problem. And when you're with your child, completely be with them in who they truly are in that moment. Just sit with your child and look at them. Leave the past behind, leave the future behind, and just be with their Christ self. And what I did with my daughter was I just started to see an amazing, gorgeous, holy, perfect child of God in front of me, and that's all I could see. And I started to tell her she was perfect. Now, those words felt a bit clumsy coming out of my mouth, considering I just spent 5 years telling her how she needed to change. So it does take a while to practice this, and it is a practice. And then what happens is, so we're bringing in this experience of how we would sit in front of Jesus and how we would feel, not awe, but just this beautiful, deep gratitude, this deep love for him, just this and a limitless, boundless love that we would feel for him and from him. Now, this is just what we're doing is when we're sitting with Jesus and we're experiencing this gorgeous love, we're tapping into the truth in our minds. We're tapping into an experience. And then what we're doing is we're taking it to the illusion that there's a problem, and we're going to be doing it with our child. Now, I would say to you, if you finally get to a stage where you think, I give up, I don't know how to fix my child other than kidnapping them, which was one of the things I thought of doing, kidnapping them and putting them in a little country cottage and completely detoxing them. If that won't work, they will eventually get out and go back and find drugs, because the dreadful, dreadful mind that they live in, the guilt, the amount of guilt and hatred they have towards themselves, which is just the egoic self, it's so difficult to live in. They need to find drugs to alleviate, even just for a short time, alleviate that state of mind. So it's not personal. They're not. So even though their ego is probably projecting out, most children project their deep hatred and guilt back onto their parents. So they'll tell you that you've been a terrible parent. They'll tell you that you fucked their lives up and that you're the cause. But that we can't take that personally, even though you may have in the past. You must see that it's not personal. It's a terrible state of mind that they're living in, and the guilt is fueled by not only the guilt that they started off, but the guilt of what they're doing to the family. They might have stolen, they might be selling drugs, they might be spent some time in jail or nearly go to jail. The guilt of all that, it's like a loop. It's a never ending, and it gets worse for their minds. So we are going to be the light of the world. Jesus is asking us to be the light that practice this seeing the face of Christ. Now, if you like, there's a section in the classification of terms. Number 3, forgiveness, the face of Christ. This is now, there's a couple of points that I need to make here. You can't do this practice with wanting outcomes. There's the only outcome for this is the healing of your mind and the healing of the other's mind, but you can't be attached to how that healing happens. So that's why I say you have to be okay with whatever they do. So what I came to see with my daughter was, I said to her, you can take drugs for the rest of your life. I just love you and I'll be with you and I'll just love you. My job is to love her as her perfect self and allow her to do what she needs to do. So I was not attached to outcomes. I was even okay if she needed to die, that would be what needed to happen. And if she needed to go to jail, which was very unlikely, but that would need to happen. Whatever she needed to do, my healing, my job was to see her for who she truly was. That was all I needed to do, was focus on her innocence, her guiltlessness, that she was perfect, that she was whole, that she was complete, that she was gorgeous, that she was beautiful. And I'm not talking about bodies, I'm talking about the magnificence of her Christ self, of her true self. And that's coming from an experience. So as I looked at her, I was remembering my Christ self, who I truly was. And my mind was getting undone from its misperceptions. True empathy is how we heal. We cannot heal anyone by thinking there's a problem that needs to be fixed. So anyone that's ill, anyone sick, or I work with a paraplegic, I never see him as a body. He's not a body. He's the beautiful Christ self. He might think he's got a broken body, but there's only the Christ here. There's only the perfect Christ self in everyone, every living thing. And that's all that's here. But to start with, this was 4 years ago when I first practiced this, and it takes practice. We're asking to completely do a radical shift. So if you're done with, if you've come to a state where you've said, I'm done, I've done everything, nothing's working, then, you resign as your own teacher and you start getting taught by the Christ. And that's all. True empathy is just seeing what is really there. And what happens is you might be the only person in your child's life that actually sees them as they are. And how beautiful it is. Imagine when you've been really feeling so terrible because you're in your egoic mind and in this unworthiness, maybe depressed or something, and someone comes along and just sees the beauty in you and just loves you and doesn't try to fix and advise and tell you where to go and what books to read and what teachers to see. And they just say, oh, you're just gorgeous, beautiful. There's nothing to heal because I just see you as who you are. And in that moment, you know, you're just feeling this love. So that's on the level of the Christ mind. And then in terms of forms in what seems to be this world, you'll just do what you need to do from guidance. So if you need to take your child to rehab, go to rehab. If you need to do whatever, if the child wants to come back and live with you or is living with you or whatever, you need to really connect into this guidance of all the things that are best for him or her, and you've got to follow it, knowing that is the guidance is for everyone. It's the miracle, and you have to trust. So this trust, this level of trust, is huge until it becomes your way of life, until you just trust completely in the mind that's guiding you all the time. So this video is really aimed at parents with children, but it really, you will, once you practice this and you start to connect in to this, there will be so many beautiful miracles. You've got to see that what you've done prior hasn't worked, and that's when you can actually say, look, I'm going to start practicing this Course in Miracles. This is the Course in Miracles. This is the miracle that comes from when you perceive truly. You're seeing a different world. You're not going to see the world of a child that's a drug addict or a gambler or whatever. And another thing, and these are just little things, is you know, don't correct your child's clothing, tattoos, hairstyle, nose rings, whatever. If you've got an idea that tattoos aren't nice or you don't like them, you've got to see that you've given everything the meaning it has for you, because you may have grown up loving tattoos and think that they're most gorgeous things and that white plain skin is ugly. In a way, neither is good or bad. So if your child's wearing, you know, goth clothes or has unwashed hair, don't tell them to wash it. Don't tell them to wash their hair. If you go out to a family function, whatever they put in, just tell them how gorgeous they are. And also you need to lose the idea that what people think about your child reflects on you. It has nothing to do with you. Your child is a completely separate child of God. The idea that you think that somehow what someone's going to think of them is going to reflect on you, and that's normal. And you know, that's the ego. That's what it thinks. So if you need to drop that, and maybe even to, when you say, Holy Spirit, help me see this differently, it might come in, well, pretend they're someone else's child and that they're nothing to do with you. So I had to go through that as well and let my daughter be free and just say, you are who you are. You're not my daughter. I've got, or my only job is to see you as who you truly are. And in that moment, and just to tell you, so I just started telling my daughter, you are beautiful, you're gorgeous, you're lovely, and so, yeah, don't just, if whatever their clothes are, their friends, whatever, you've given meaning to anything. If you've got a judgment around anything to do with what they eat, let everything, drop everything, stop saying anything to them except how innocent and how beautiful and how whole they are. Those are the only words that need to come out of your mouth. And, you know, you might say, you know, what are you doing today, or that sort of thing, but do not correct them, do not try to change them, nothing, not one tiny aspect of them needs changing, because who they are is absolutely perfect, and there's nothing to be changed about them. And when your mind comes to see that, you're practicing true forgiveness, true empathy, you're actually seeing the perfect Holy Son of God in front of you. Would be really love to hear if you're listening to this and you start practicing this. I've told, I used to be on a website for families of children on drugs, and I used to go and visit people and I'd share this message, and a lot of them couldn't do this. They still thought that they had to fix and change, and it doesn't. It's terrible for your child to be told that they need to change something when they're already feeling dreadful from their guilt. So be the light of the world. Be the one person that does something different. Be that one person. Just be that one mind that's in their life that's going to heal them. And just trust that this is the truth. And you've got nothing to lose. Practice it for a week. Practice it for a month. And I'd love to hear your miracles. You can message me. I've got a website, catherinegrieves.com. I've got my email address on there if you want to message me with the beautiful miracles. And the miracles are not changes. They're shifts in perception. So your child, to be seen truly is the most wonderful gift you can give, and the wonderful gift to receive. You know, when someone sees you as who you truly are, it's so gorgeous and so healing. You know, someone doesn't want to fix and change and correct you, and they just love you and they just tell you how perfect you are now. Oh, it's just gorgeous. And that's what we're going to be doing with our children. And that's how we're going to be healing them. And we're just going to say, you're just so gorgeous and I love you. You know, don't change. It's beautiful. And just see where miracles happen. And just let this love, this limitless, changeless, boundless love that you are, affect everyone around you. And I'll finish off now. So I'll just do a blessing to you. I love you and I bless you and I honour you. You are the perfect Christ. You are perfect, whole and complete right now in this moment. And all there is this moment. And that's all you ever are, and that's all you'll ever be. And this moment lasts for infinity. It's eternal and timeless. Blessings. I love you. Bye-bye.